Welcome to my channel, and today we are discussing The Real Housewives of Potomac, Season 1, Episode 6. And yes, it is all about Ashley's trip for the ladies to Bethany Beach, where she owns a home with her husband. It was owned by her husband and his ex-wife, whose name is Susan. So it was owned by Michael and Susan when they were married, and then after they were divorced, the ownership then transferred to Ashley and Michael. So Ashley invites the ladies to Bethany Beach. This is not the home that Ashley and Michael have in Bethany Beach, but this is just a representation of the types of homes that are for rent for the weekend or for a week or whatever. A lot of people own homes in Bethany Beach and they rent them out. And this type of home would rent for about $1,400 if you were staying for the weekend. And as you can see, it's a sizable house, so it's not something that only the super rich go to Bethany Beach. It's not like that at all. Regular professionals bring their families for the weekend and spend $1,500, and they rent a place for 2.5 days and then they go back to the city. This is a child's bed, and one issue that came up was that the women complained that 2 of the rooms were children's rooms that Ashley put women in. And I do agree that it is rude to complain about the accommodations when someone invites you somewhere, but it is also very rude to invite women to a place for several days and you don't have adult accommodations. You don't put adults, particularly adults who may be 5'7", 5'8", 5'9", 5'10", into a children's bed and think that that's okay. And so I think that it was handled poorly by the women when they saw their accommodations, but it was also handled poorly by Ashley because you don't put adults in children's quarters. It's not comfortable. It's just not appropriate, particularly if you have the type of money where you can rent an entire bedroom and put it in the 2 rooms that are normally used for children's rooms. And that is something that people who have money are able to do very easily. They just hire somebody to come in and redo the room, even if it's for several days. It should not be a big deal at all. So that was one issue that came up during the trip to Bethany Beach. The other issue that came up that Ashley did not take care of is she did not require her guests to provide chef notes. A chef is going to plan for a group of people, and usually if you invite people for several days, you already know what their dietary restrictions are, what they like to eat, and all of that, and you can plan. If you do not know people very well, then you have to ask them to give you their chef notes, which everyone has stored their chef notes on a computer who's used to going to places where there is a private chef that will be cooking for the group. So it's a document that everybody has on their computer already saved. If you're having something, you ask people to send you the chef notes. The chef gets everybody's notes together, and then the chef can plan the meals of what's going to be served, what's not going to be served by looking at the chef notes. And so clearly Ashley did not take that step or didn't know about it because the ladies complained about what was served. Another issue that came up, and please take note of Karen's wig and how high it is, but another issue that came up was that Ashley had arranged for a surfing instructor to give the ladies surfing lessons. Well, Giselle and Karen and Charisse did not want to participate in that, and that's fine. But the other issue is if you're hosting something and you are spending money to hire people to do something, or even if you're not spending money to hire people to do something for the group, find out what the group would like to do, what activities they like. You don't just pick activities out of the air, announce it to people when they wake up that that's what they're doing, and then expect everybody just to jump in. Some people are good sports and they'll do that, but if you are a good host, you find out what the entire group wants to do, and you don't pick an activity where half of the group is participating and the other half isn't. Also, during the weekend, Ashley decided to put everyone's names on cards and put them on the beds that they were assigned to sleep in. And Cherise made an issue because her name wasn't spelled correctly and her friend's name wasn't spelled correctly. And that is something that an assistant should always double check if there's any names put on anything. But it just was something that if someone makes a mistake about that, commenting on it is very rude, because it's really something that an assistant should have checked on and didn't. And then Ashley is very young, and she probably didn't even think that that was a detail that would end up being a conversation. At one point during the trip for the ladies, Cherise again starts crying about her marriage. I understand somebody who's been married 18 years may not want to let that relationship go, but the bottom line is when a man has moved out on you, does not speak to you, does not spend any time with you, comes in town to spend with the children, doesn't tell you when he's leaving or going because he's not communicating with you, there is nothing to fix in the marriage. There is nothing to fix. It is already over. Also during the trip, Giselle decides in the car, in front of all the ladies, to Google Katie's rants online about Russell Simmons, who apparently was cheating on her when they were living together. And so Giselle decides to Google those rants and to read them out loud to everyone. What is interesting about that is that there is so much information, salacious material about Giselle's ex all over the internet for her to be talking about anyone else's failed relationships. And maybe Giselle feels that that is just information about him and not about her, but character of whoever you marry says something about your character as well. In one conversation that Giselle was in with Katie, Katie asks Giselle if she's into white guys, and Giselle indicates that she is for the night, and it was kind of a joke. But here's the thing that's interesting about that question. If you look at Giselle's appearance, her appearance is racially ambiguous. Her appearance suggests that there are white grandparents in her ancestry mix, that one of her parents may be biracial, who knows, but clearly there are white people in her family line and very close to her, in terms of not having white people in her family line for several generations. That's probably not the case for her. So it was just an interesting question for Katie to ask somebody who clearly has white people in their own family line if they're into white people. It's just an interesting question for her to ask someone. While Cherise was talking about her divorce situation or her marital troubles in the circle with the ladies, Karen mentions that her mother has been diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and she also mentions on her Twitter page that her mother gave her permission to talk about that on camera, and so she wanted to do that. In this show, Robin talks about the fact that they had a lot of money stolen from them, from somebody that Juan had allowed to manage their money. I don't feel sorry for that. Juan made so many mistakes as a husband, just cheating on her. The money was squandered, hiring people who stole from them. It's kind of like, what has Juan actually done that benefited Robin at all? But I'm showing this image because Robin is promoting her new her new website on her Twitter page, and she links to this. And just zoom in on something for 1 second. So clearly Robin has someone who was hired to create a website for her who cannot spell, and they are obviously creating content for the website. It's really not even written in her voice, but she has a website out there now. Robin is also doing some public appearances at, I guess, auto shows and things like that, and meeting some of her fans from the show at events such as that. And she's publicizing those things on her Twitter page. So if you're interested in that, follow her page.